Are you amazed when I say that food always starts with plants for all the organisms as they produce it? Plant food is eaten by small animals, which are in turn eaten by large animals, and so on. So, the organisms living on Earth are linked to each other for food and other needs. This signifies that we all are interdependent. This dependency on food has led to the representation of a food chain. The food chain involves the linear transfer of energy from one organism to another organism. For instance, let us have a look at a food chain. In any food chain, the sun is the ultimate source of energy for all organisms. Energy is provided in the form of sunlight. This light energy is captured by the plants and converted into chemical energy by photosynthesis. As the plants can synthesize their own food, they become the first source of food in any food chain. Hence, they are called producers. Producers occupy the first level in any food chain. Next, we have animals eating plants at the second level of the food chain. These are primary consumers. In a sequence, energy is transferred from producers to primary consumers. Further, primary consumers are eaten by secondary consumers. The latter occupy the third level in the food chain with the linear transfer of energy. Next, secondary consumers are eaten by tertiary consumers, who occupy the fourth level in the food chain, gaining energy in a sequence. Note that tertiary consumers do not have any predators to feed on them. Predators are the animals that feed on other animals. Tertiary consumers occupy the highest level in the food chain. Each level in a food chain is called the trophic level. Hence, a food chain exhibits the transfer of energy in one direction. A food web involves interconnection between many food chains, depicting the interdependence of organisms involved in it. The basic principle of the flow of energy from one trophic level to another is maintained, even in a food web. The flow of energy is from the producers to primary consumers, to secondary consumers, to tertiary consumers. For instance, in the food web represented here, the transfer of energy from carrot to rabbit to fox to eagle makes up the first food chain. In the same food web, the transfer of energy from plants to a rat to a fox to an eagle makes up the second food chain. Observe that food chains 1 and 2 are related by the trophic level occupied by a fox. Now, coming to the third food chain in the food web, there is a transfer of energy from plants to grasshopper, to frog, to snake, and the fox. From here, finally to the eagle. Now, food chains 2 and 3 are connected by a common organism, the fox. Likewise, food chains 2 and 3 are also connected by a common organism, the snake. Let us proceed with food chain 4. Here, there is a transfer of energy from fruits on trees to a bird, to a snake, and finally to an eagle. Here, the snake is the common organism between the food chain 1, 2, 3, and 4. Snake can eat a rabbit, rat, frog, and bird. To talk about the differences between a food chain and a food web. Food chains are linear, while the food webs, involving many food chains, are interlocked. There is a limited number of organisms in most food chains, while the food web has many food chains interlinked. Among many food chains, the number of organisms decreases as we go further. In comparison, there is no such limit on the number of organisms in a food web. Thus, we have studied the food chain and food web. Let us summarize. A food chain can be defined as the linear flow of energy from one trophic level to another trophic level. A food web is the interconnection or combination of many food chains. Food chains are linear, while the food webs, involving many food chains, are interlocked.